Just 6 months ago, the Timberwolves were in the conference finals off a comeback series win against the defending champion Nuggets. Now, Minnesota is barely in the play-in and at risk of completely missing the postseason. The Cat for Randle trade has set back the Wolves for years, and Ant's development has stagnated, while their wings cannot buy a shot. The Wolves' offense is one of the worst in the league, and nearly everyone on the team is underperforming. What looked like the rise of the Timberwolves from their best season arguably ever has turned into the fallback into mediocrity, and they may be stuck for the next few years as they are so much worse than we all thought. But just how bad have the Timberwolves been this season? Record-wise, they're 14-14, with this game being recorded before Christmas, but they are projected to fall below 500 against the Mavs as they are below the Clippers, Warriors, and Spurs in the standings. The Wolves averaged just 109.3 points a game, despite scoring 113 last season, with a huge offensive regression, as they are outscored by the Utah Jazz this season. There just isn't that many shot creators on this team aside from Ant, and with Julius Randle as the second option and a front court paired with Rudy, the offensive creation just isn't there, though we will talk more about that front court later. The offensive rating backs us up, ranking 23rd at 110.3, 4.7 offensive rating points below last season, and their lowest since Ant's rookie year, and are severely below league average. The lack of playmaking is also huge. Anthony Edwards continues to not be able to make basic reads, specifically on the roll with Rudy Gobert. That was already a flaw last season, with Ant's lack of ability to make it past a double team, and the Wolves not having any real playmakers being a huge reason for their quick loss to Dallas in the conference finals. And with the expectation of Edwards to take that superstar leap into top 5 contention, he needs to be better at creating for others, or at least even making simple passes and decisions, and he still consistently can't do that. Even Mike Conley isn't great at creating under pressure for others and is averaging just 8 points a game. Julius Randle creation is very tough. It looks so visually unappealing and feels like all of his shots are always smothered. Even rookies Rob Dillingham and Terrence Shannon Jr., who were great last year in college, aren't getting any run, so they haven't even had the opportunity to try to give the Wolves more options on offense. All of this has showed in how the team has not got the pick and roll going. They are below average in points and field goal percentage among the pick and roll ball handler and 5th lowest in points as the roll man. While Gobert is dreadful offensively most of the time, he has shown that he's one of the few ways that he can score is in the pick and roll. In Gobert's last 2 years with Utah, they ranked top 5 in points as the roll man and 1st as the ball handler. There were clutch plays down the stretch in his last games as a member of the Jazz in the playoffs, where Rudy would score off the pick and roll, but the Timberwolves cannot create these opportunities. Ant is shooting 44%, and Conley somehow much worse at 34% in the PNR. Even their assist-to-turnover ratio is bad at 1.58, the 9th worst in the league, and compared to last year, this team's shooting has taken a sharp decline, something that will be talked about more. But the Wolves shot 38.7%, 3rd highest, only barely trailing OKC and Boston last season, but now they are chucking up threes at a league average rate. They are shooting more than teams like the Cavs, Bucks, Suns, and Knicks, despite all those teams being multiple percentage points better than Minnesota. This team has even regressed scoring in the paint. The T-Wolves scored 31.9 points a game on drives while shooting over 50% last year, but are now scoring less than 26 while shooting 46%, the worst since Ant's rookie year. Even the elite defense this team had last year is gone. Minnesota had the best offensive rating last season, and it was not close at 108.4, and the future champion Celtics in second at 110.6. Despite the rapid rise in offense up until this year, that still would have been the best in the year prior to last season, and they were 6.3 defensive rating points better than league average. By far the best relative defensive rating in franchise history, and the team's best defensive rating in a decade. This year, they're still very good defense, but ranked 6th, and a lot of that is based on how good Rudy is. His rim deterrence causes arguably the greatest defensive floor over the last decade, and even some of the horror Jazz perimeter defenses were elevated to at least respectable, or sometimes even elite defensive years. But the fact that this team retained players known as elite wing defenders, like Jaden McDaniels and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and even guys like Ant and Naz Reid, that we saw especially hound Nuggets and give guys like Jamal Murray countless issues last year, and they still failed to be even top 3 or even top 5 in defensive rating, considering their offense is very worrisome. Despite scoring actually going down this year, with teams averaging nearly 1.5 points less. The Timberwolves are allowing more points this season than last year and have a much worse net rating, going from 3rd in the league with a plus 6.5 to outside the top 10 at plus 2. Even in the clutch, where Minnesota was very good last year with the 8th best record at 21-15, they now aren't good, going 7-10 and are shooting an atrocious 38.9% from the field and 22.2% from 3, bottom 5 in both, and they have the worst total plus minus at minus 42. Yes, in clutch games, the Timberwolves are under 500 and have got outscored by 42 points, the worst across the entire league, despite the season being just a third of the way through. They cannot close games. For a year, where Ant was supposed to take that jump with Cat gone, he hasn't done that. He's averaging just 25 points, and though he is shooting amazingly from 3, the other aspects of his game have been lackluster, and the rest of the team has not been able to shoot the ball. Dante, who shot above 40% from deep last year in New York, is shooting threes at the lowest rate since his rookie year, at 33.1%. Jaden McDaniels has regressed to 32.1%. Mike Conley going from 44.2% to 36.8%. Naz Reid went from 41.4% to 35.4%. The only high volume shooter aside from Ant doing well is NAW at 43%. But even he's making just 1.3 deep range shots a game. For a team shooting so bad, why are they taking over 43s a game? It doesn't make sense. The front court of this team is just terrible too. Putting Julius Randle and Rudy Gobert next to each other was so obviously a terrible fit. They are so gross offensively, and though Julius isn't a bad 3-point shooter, the spacing will get much worse with Randle instead of Cat, and the offensive flexibility has gone down. And the worst part is that they didn't have to do the trade. The trade is absolutely terrible on a base level, but many people said that it was because of the cap space. That is not true. They had the cap to run it back for another season, and even if the cap is messed up for the future, why are you trading Cat? Minnesota is paying Rudy Gobert $43.8 million this season, but you trade Towns, who had been on the team for almost a decade. He was the heart and soul of this team. He was the city of Minnesota and wanted to retire Timberwolves. He still has talked about how he was shocked about the trade, and you see this year just how good he is playing. As a front office, that seems like a backstab to a franchise legend. We have also seen teams like the Celtics paying their players even if they go over the second apron because they are contenders. And the same Minnesota team as last year would still be in contention in the Western Conference. Cat offered spacing, and they had the best season defensively of his career, with the duo of Cat and Gobert actually working with their first season together, because remember, he got injured the year before. What was the thought of trading for Gobert and his contract if you weren't planning on keeping this team together and blowing it up after 2 years? It makes no sense, and with Randle's free agency soon, they are either going to have to pay Randle $30 to $40 million a year or let him walk, pretty much trading a franchise legend in Cat for 1 season of Julius Randle and an underperforming Dante DiVincenzo. All of this is arguably after the best season in franchise history, but now the Timberwolves are mediocre with no clear sign of any way to get out soon. I'm sorry, Anthony Edwards and Timberwolves fan, but the next few years are going to be really bad.